Hey, welcome to Classic Guitar Rock. I'm Jeremy, and we're going to do a quick update and listener email for today, the 24th of February. Can you believe we're already almost through the second month? The older you get, the faster these months just fly by. It's ridiculous. Hey, I'd love to hear from you, so shoot me an email, classicguitarrock@mail.com, or just visit our website, classicguitarrock.com, and you can leave a message there. They all wind up in the same place, right? Also, please follow us on Twitter. If you're on Twitter, please follow us. And if you haven't subscribed to the YouTube channel yet, please take a minute and do so. So I've got four emails that I want to get to. First one is from Calvin. It says, "Hello, Classic Guitar Rock. I've been listening for a while and have gone back to listen to all the episodes I missed. I'm waiting for an in-depth episode about the mighty Van Halen. How long will I have to wait?" I grew up in Southern California, and VH has been my soundtrack since I was about 12 years old. Keep on rocking, Calvin. Thank you, Calvin. Thanks so much for your email, and thanks for listening to the episodes. You know, I've mentioned Van Halen in a couple episodes. I think we talked about albums in 78. We've talked about different things where obviously Eddie comes into the conversation. But you're right, we haven't done an episode just about Van Halen yet, which seems like an oversight. So let's see what we can do about that. I mean, you just can't say enough about how important Van Halen is. Eddie, the player, and Van Halen, the band. You know, so much. I have mentioned this, I know, in YouTube conversations. There are three eras of rock guitar. There's the Chuck Berry era, there's the Jimi Hendrix era, and there's the Eddie Van Halen era. And what do I mean by that? Obviously, there were more great guitar players than just those, but those were the three guitar players that, to me, really moved things in a different direction. You know, Chuck Berry, and you can debate about this, but he really kind of invented rock and roll guitar. And yes, he borrowed from other people, and I get that. But Chuck Berry was very influential on the Beatles, a lot of the bands of the 60s. Then you got Hendrix, who comes along. He kind of rewrote the book in the late 60s. So you got the late 50s, late 60s, late 70s, right? Then Eddie Van Halen comes along in the late 70s, and he rewrote the book. So, so influential, had so much to do with the direction that rock guitar playing went, and was such a unique voice. You could tell it's Eddie right away from the way he plays. He plays notes that shouldn't work, and they work. And his rhythm playing is phenomenal. He doesn't get enough credit for the rhythm stuff he does, but he just truly one of the greats. And I'm one of these people that loves both eras of Van Halen. I love the Dave years. I love the Sammy years. Sometimes people want to debate that, and I'll debate it too, just for fun. But the reality is, I love both, and I have to treat them as two different bands, right? Dave had his own skill set that no one was better than him at. Sammy has his own unique skill set that only Sammy can do, and they really are two different bands. And when Sammy came along, the band really changed. I'm not saying it was better or worse. It was just different, right? And I love both eras. But absolutely, we will do something more in depth, a dedicated episode about Eddie Van Halen. We owe it to you, the home viewer. Yeah, we really, I mean, seriously, we got to talk about that. Okay, another one. I love this one. This is from Sarah J. "Hi, Jeremy and John. Have to share this memory. In Christmas 1985, I got one of those combo turntable cassette player stereos. I had one too. Along with my new stereo, my parents also gave me two records, a Heart album, Passion Works, and the Journey Frontiers album. Those were all I had, but I played them both over and over and over. To this day, Heart and Journey are my two favorite bands. Thanks for the podcast. Yeah, I think I got my combo stereo thingy probably in about 82, so a little earlier. I'm probably a little older than you. But that was my escape, right? You go into the room, put on your record or your cassette, or what you make your own mixtape, right? Record from the turntable onto your cassette. I had lots of those. So yeah, lots of time spent in my room listening to that stereo. In fact, funny story, that little stereo of mine was, put away in storage somewhere. And about 10 years ago, my folks say, hey, we got your old record player upstairs. We pulled it out of storage. So I went up and pulled it out, and there's a bunch of my records and all of this. And my daughter, who's now almost 30, but was probably, so this is probably 15 years ago. She was probably 15 at the time. She's pulling out all these records, and she's like, Dad, are these like CDs? And at that time, I realized I had failed as a parent because my daughters didn't even know what LP records were. We've rectified that. And in fact, since I dug out all those records, I've since gotten back into vinyl and gotten a better turntable and stereo. I'm not using my 1982, combo stereo that I sound design that I bought from Walmart or Kmart or wherever I got it. But that kind of re-triggered me to get out all my other records and start listening to vinyl again. But I just thought it was funny that my daughter, is this like a CD? I felt really old. Those albums you mentioned, Passionworks, not a bad album. Later in 85, remember that phenomenal Heart album, just called Heart, came out. That album had like 4 or 5 huge singles on it. It had like Alone. It had These Dreams. Never. Okay. Never. So there's at least 3. What was the one? As I walk home every evening. Oh, Nothing at All. It had Nothing at All. At least 4. Probably another one on there, but 4 or 5 songs that were hits from that one album. And I can remember when I started working in radio in 86, there was still songs charting from that album that had been out over a year. So that was a huge album. And then, of course, the Bad Animals, was that the one that came out in 86 or 87? And yeah, there was that one. Then Brigade. So they had like 3 in a row. Maybe Brigade was before. No, Bad Animals. Then I don't remember. But from 85 to like 88, Heart had 3 massively successful albums. And of course, you go back to the classic Dreamboat Annie and all of that stuff. Dog and the Butterfly. I mean, Heart's awesome. I love Heart. And of course, Journey. It's funny you mentioned Frontiers. I saw Journey on the Frontiers tour in Norman, Oklahoma. What can you say about Journey? They're awesome. I've mentioned them a couple times in the last few podcasts about how it drives me crazy that there's all this bickering going on. That's sad, right? But Journey's awesome. I love Journey. If you ever get a chance to see Journey, even the current makeup of Journey is awesome to see live. Arnell is awesome. So don't let the fact that Steve Perry's not there keep you from seeing a Journey show, because they're still really good. Great musicians, a great catalog. So that's awesome. Sarah, thank you for your email. I have great memories with the combo turntable and cassette player. And if you were rich, you might have 8-track in it as well. I wasn't rich, so I just had the phono and the cassette. And of course, your AM/FM stereo. It's wonderful. Another one. Hey, CGR, enjoyed one of your very early episodes of the podcast about the rock and roll family tree. It is funny that nearly all roads lead back to Black Sabbath and Deep Purple. LOL. It is funny, and it's true. Can you tie Judas Priest back to that root? They seem to be pretty self-contained. I think I might have mentioned that in the podcast. Judas Priest is. There are some bands that are hard. Rush is another one because they were self-contained, right? They didn't go out and play in other bands and split up and bring in other people and that sort of thing. So there's some bands that are hard to tie into that family tree, and often they do link right back into Black Sabbath or Deep Purple. And of course, Deep Purple and Black Sabbath, you can link them together because you got Rainbow, which was an offshoot that brought in Dio and members of Black Sabbath. So they're all kind of connected together. But Judas Priest is a tough one. There is a way to tie Judas Priest in. And here's the first one I can think of. Glenn Hughes played in a band called Trapeze way back in the 60s, early 70s. Guess it was more early 70s. Well, guess who Glenn Hughes' drummer in Trapeze was? A guy named Dave Holland. Dave Holland joined Judas Priest, I believe, with the British Steel album. Yes, I think he joined for British Steel. So Dave Holland was with them really for their biggest albums. British Steel, Point of Entry, Screaming for Vengeance, Defenders of the Faith, Turbo, I think Ram It Down. Was he still there with Ram It Down? Anyway, sometime in there he was replaced, but 5 or 6 of their biggest albums featured Dave Holland. Glenn Hughes, of course, played in Deep Purple, so that gets you right to the family tree right there. There's your connection. Dave Holland, member of Judas Priest. Glenn Hughes, member of both Deep Purple and Black Sabbath. So actually there's a pretty strong connection to pull Judas Priest into the rock and roll family tree. You got to do it through Dave Holland. You got to go clear back to Trapeze to do it, but you can. That's always a fun parlor game to play, right? Tying people, and it's funny, some of the bands you can link in that you wouldn't think you could, like real poppy bubblegum bands that you can tie into Black Sabbath and things like that. It's a fun game to play, but that's how you can tie in Judas Priest, is through Glenn Hughes and the band Trapeze. Last one here. Hey, just saw you on your YouTube channel talking about John Elefante and Kansas. I think that was like on Tuesday. And it got me thinking, have you heard the Streets album by Steve Walsh? I love it. It hasn't held up so well over time because it sounds very 80s, but I still listen to it all the time. Take care, Robert, look what I did just for you. I pulled this out from my collection. Here it is, Streets from 1983. So those of you not familiar, and there was actually an album after this, by the way, too. I don't have it. I just have this first one. We're talking about Elefante in Kansas. Steve Walsh left after the Monolith album, which was like 79 or 80. And then they did the, what's the album with Play the Game? Is it called Play the Game? No, Vinyl Confessions. Okay, so they did the Vinyl Confessions album. And then the one after, sorry, I'm getting a blank. There was an album after that. There's 2 albums that John Elefante came and did. During that time, Steve Walsh, there's a picture. There's Steve Walsh in the blue right there. During that time, Steve Walsh started this project called Streets, and it never really took off. This is a great album, and it is very, I mean, it sounds like 1983. You know, the keyboards sound very 1983. The guitars are very kind of a cheesy chorus effect on them throughout. But the guitar player on this, his name is Mike Slamer. Phenomenal guy, man. I know I use the word phenomenal too often, but this guy's really good. Very tasty guitar playing. Catchy album. You know, it's kind of hit or miss because there are a few songs. If Love Should Go, if there were a hit, and it wasn't really a hit, but If Love Should Go was kind of the single. Great tune. There are a few others that you just wonder, why wasn't that a hit? Because it sure could have been. So there are several tracks on this that could have been hits, and it's pop, right? I wouldn't call it real hard rock. It's power pop. It's pop rock. You know, it's got great guitars, great vocals. Steve Walsh, a very underrated singer. The guy's an animal, just a great singer and great keyboard player, talented guy. I don't know. I need to dig into my Kansas history. I don't know why he left, what was going on. Elefante, who replaced him, is also a super talented guy. But this is kind of a fun album, and it's on Spotify. You can stream it. But it does sound like 1983. If you dig that sound, you'll love this. If you don't, you'll I don't know. But great musicianship, some great songs, great pop album. It's called Streets. So check that out. Robert, thank you for reminding me of that. And it is a great album. Please email me, classicguitarrock@mail.com, or you can go to our website, classicguitarrock.com. I'd love to hear your thoughts on your favorite classic rock songs, artists, albums, whatever. We just love to hear from you. Thanks so much for tuning in. We'll see you next time right here on Classic Guitar Rock. Bye-bye.